Hello? Is it working? Let's see here. Just trying to see my live stream here. Alright, we're up and running. Cool. So, hi friends. Welcome to the part 2 of an extra special rapid fire answers just for my campaign supporters. A big thank you to everyone who did support my campaign and who got me my new iMac. I'm now up and running, and I'll be back to making videos, Ask an Autistic episodes, real soon. There is a slight delay on this thing. I think it's about 20 seconds, so heads up about that. There is a chat window in the right-hand side of the page that you're viewing this on YouTube. So you can submit questions in there or email them to me. I'll check my email a couple times throughout this live stream. Or I guess, yeah, those are your options. Post them in the chat window or email them to me. Oh, okay, 2 people are here now, so it looks like people are coming in. Hi. I think that I will tell the story of getting my computer because it's kind of an interesting story and I told it last live chat, but it's cool, and so I'll tell it again briefly to give everyone some time to get here before I start answering questions. So Marvin and I figured out what computer I wanted online, like what specifications I needed, and then we went to an Apple store in a mall near us. And the employee who helped us as we were checking out and saying goodbye, I mentioned that this computer was actually kind of a gift, like it was fundraised for me by my followers, and that I have a blog and a YouTube channel. And the employee was intrigued and asked what my blog was about, and I said, well, it might not be your thing, but it's about autism. It's called Ask an Autistic. And he was kind of excited about it and got a bit emotional because this random Apple employee who we just happened to meet that day has an 8-year-old daughter who is autistic and who's nonverbal. So I was able to give him my card, and maybe he'll check out my YouTube channel. I don't know, maybe he would watch this video, but if so, hi, nice Apple Store employee. And I think that's really cool that just coincidentally 2 people who have something in common, me being autistic, him having a daughter who's autistic, happened to meet up. And yeah, so that's the cool story. And I think that I will jump into answering questions now. I got a few through my email, so I'll answer those. Alright, so the first question is from someone who's actually in Australia, so they weren't sure if they would be able to actually view the live stream live, but I want to answer their question. The question is, do you drive? I've always been terrified to drive. I believe it's due many of the challenging traits that come with being autistic. I got my official ASD diagnosis in February. At 36 years old, I still haven't learned how to drive. Yeah, I can drive. Actually, I need to renew my license. It's been like 5 years since I got it, I guess. Or, yeah. But I don't drive. I feel like I could in an emergency, like if Marvin was dying and I needed to get him to the ER or something. But for me, like kind of what you said, Asker, there's so many aspects of being autistic and so many of my comorbid impairments or disabilities that interfere with safely driving. The biggest one for me being sensory processing disorder and visual overload, like visual processing disorder too. So that's kind of dangerous. Also, I can't really drive at night because of my synesthesia. I see sounds as if it's like outside of my body, and so that actually like gets in the way of me driving. It can be distracting, and if I'm tired or stressed out or I've had a long day, then there's no way I would be able to get behind a wheel and drive safely, because I just can't, my brain can't process fast enough. And it's very stressful for me because I don't know what the other cars on the road are going to do. Yeah, it's like I trust myself to drive, basically. It's the other people on the road that are the issue. So I don't drive, but I can. I just, like you, a lot of common autistic traits can interfere with driving, like sensory processing disorder, like visual processing disorder, like any kind of cognitive delay too. It's not uncommon. If you want to drive, that can suck. But for me, I'm fine not driving. Yeah. So I guess that answers that question. Oh, it looks like my live stream has stalled or something. Let me try refreshing that. Try to see what you guys are seeing. This did not happen on Thursday. Come back, please. Live stream. I don't really want to like keep talking and answering questions if you guys can't hear me. Okay, we're back. Cool. I guess it might have just been on my end, but it seemed to have like completely stalled and was frozen. Sorry if that did happen on your guys' end too. So, next question that I got through email. Hi Amethyst, thanks for the book recommendations in the last video. No problem. I was wondering if there are any more books you might know of that are helpful for autistic adults. I feel like therapy isn't much of an option right now. I've seen therapists and I mention I'm autistic and they freeze up. I know this is a vague question because every autistic person is different, but I was wondering if there's anything personally you found useful. With this question, I feel like it's about kind of like self-help or therapy type books that you're after. And in that case, I actually can't think of anything specifically for autistic people. Yeah, which I guess is a real like hole in the market. Maybe someone should write one. I don't know. Not me, but someone. Maybe someone should write one. As far as like therapy and emotional regulation, I can't think of any autism specific books. But I do know that a lot of autistic people I've talked to have found a kind of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy helpful. Not to say it would work for everybody or that everyone would like it, but quite a few autistic people who have tried it and then reported to me say that they like how it's more logical and step-based and kind of rational feeling than just talk therapy. Like just going to a therapist's office and sitting there for an hour and just talking. That can feel really unstructured, open-ended, really like if you struggle with executive dysfunction, not the best option for you. So maybe cognitive behavioral therapy if what you're after is like emotional regulation and taking control of your thought life and trying to get like control of your mind, then CBT you might like and find helpful. It's also like there's tons of worksheets and booklets online that you can work through. Of course, I haven't gone through every CBT like piece of material, so some of them are going to be sketchy, just like how there's talk therapy that's sketchy and ableist. So, I guess just check out CBT, and if you like it, give it a shot. Otherwise, I can't really think of anything for autistic adults. Some people find Cynthia oh dang, what's her name? She writes Musings of an Aspie, I believe. She wrote a book, and it was about actually a couple books. One about pursuing an adult diagnosis, and I think one about just being an autistic adult, and I think one, but it might be autistic women specific. I sound like a bit of an airhead right now because I don't know, I'm bad at talking without a script, but yeah, I'm sorry. If I think of any, I will put them in the video description. But yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of any. If anybody has any questions for me, they can post them in the chat window on the right hand side of the page where you are viewing this video. Or just say hi. There's also cute like emojis that you can use. Yeah. So next question, let me get to it. Okay. Is it true that autistic people are more likely to have comorbid digestive problems? I'm gonna say that I don't have a lot of like science to back it up, but anecdotally, I have known autistic people to be just physiologically sensitive in a lot of ways, and digestive issues do come up. I'm not saying that every autistic person. I almost feel like this question is so loaded because what seems to be behind this question is the idea of like gluten-free, casein-free, dairy-free diets to like improve autistic people's behavior, and so in that way I don't want to say that, you know, like autistic people can't eat gluten and cutting out gluten will help. That's silly. But if you are an autistic person and you are gluten intolerant, or you are lactose intolerant, then obviously cutting those things out of your diet will be helpful for you. Like you'll feel better, you'll have more energy, you'll be able to self-moderate better. But not every autistic person has digestive issues, and there's a lot of like intertwining of autism and digestive issues, like as if digestive issues can almost cause autism. And I really want to be careful not to make it sound like I agree with that, because I don't at all. But yeah, I think that autistic people are more likely to have comorbid physical stuff as well, like IBS or Crohn's or digestive problems or allergies or what's the other one? Like immune stuff. I've spoken to, and again, not science, but anecdotally, quite a few autistic people, myself included, have a weak immune system, get sick often, take a long time to shake sicknesses off, like always catch the bug that's going around, and sometimes even slow wound healing. So again, it's not a part of autism, and not every autistic person has it, but yes, I'd say that autistic people are more likely to have comorbid physical conditions like digestive problems. Yeah. All right. So I have one more question on email, and then I guess I'll just have to think of things to say because not many people are here and I haven't received any questions yet, which is fine. This is for you guys anyway, so I'll be here for 90 minutes. Whatever happens. Alright, so the next question I got is, hi Amethyst, I'm the parent of a beautiful ASD daughter. She is nonverbal. We are working on alternative methods of communication. Is it necessary to start with the PEC system before going on to higher advanced forms of AAC? That's a good question, and I hear this actually come up a lot in speech therapy, in therapy specifically for AAC. Like if an occupational therapist comes in to help an autistic person learn to use AAC, there's this belief that you have to start with PECS, and that PECS is almost like the best of the low-tech AAC systems because it's like science-based or evidence-based. Yeah, some people use and like PECS. Some people and some autistic people hate PECS and don't like using them. So again, every autistic person is different, but you don't have to start with PECS. You definitely don't. And that's like that picture system. For anybody who's curious, each picture has a little illustration or a photo of the thing, and then it also has the English word there. So like a picture of a glass of orange juice and orange juice. And a lot of time there's like a prompt dependent kind of system with PECS, where over and over you ask the autistic kid to hand you the orange juice card or point to the ball card or whatever. So there are actually some problems with PECS. Some people like it, and it's a starting point for them. But you don't have to start with PECS. For me, that's almost like, it's like a sneaky way of getting around presuming competence. It's this idea that autistic people, I don't know if I can put it in words very well, which is funny because I'm talking about language, but there's this idea that language acquisition doesn't naturally happen in autistic people, like that autistic people don't just learn to talk or learn to understand language from listening to people around them, that we don't learn to read like by sight or by looking at books over and over again. Everything has to be taught to us in this really prompt-based, very like scientific way with everything documented. I don't think that's true. I mean, lots of autistic people pick up how to read but can't write or speak, and so there's no way for their families to know, but they can read, and so for them, starting at PECS would be really frustrating. In that case, providing that the motor control and the sensory ability is there, it would be better to start with something where they're actually forming their own words, like a letterboard or typing or writing. So also PECS can be a bit better for younger children, too. I guess is the idea, and I guess I agree in that, you know, they're colorful, laminated cards. It's a pretty simple system, just Velcro on the back. It's also something easy to do at home. But I mean, do what works for you, or do what works for your autistic kid. So if what works for your family is a label maker and putting labels in absolutely everything, or, you know, masking tape and a pen, or writing on index cards, any form of communication, and, you know, I'm only using examples of written or spoken communication right now. I'm not accounting the 90% of communication that is like body language and expression and stuff. But so just when it comes to words and expressing in words, any attempts at communication should be encouraged. And no matter how weird the system feels to you, or if it feels almost backwards, like, wait, shouldn't we be starting simpler, like ABCs, and he's already jumping to sight words, like, shouldn't we do it the normal way? Don't worry about it. Just whatever works for you or for your kid, go with it. And you can also use an autistic person's existing interests to create an AAC system that works for them. Like, an autistic person who really hates the sound of Velcro probably isn't going to like a PEC system that uses Velcro. They're going to be really resistant to using it. Somebody who has a lot of sensitivity to colors might not do as well with the bright primary colored illustrations. An autistic person who's really into cameras, you can make a system of AAC, say those Instax cameras, or just getting your photos developed, have them take pictures of things in their life, the food that they eat, the things that they play with, the places they go, and then have the words on them somehow. And then you can actually carry these photos around or make a book or a binder, and that's a way to incorporate an autistic person, their abilities and their interest, photography, and then they can actually be involved in the process of creating an AAC system for them. So I'd say follow the autistic person's lead and try lots of things. There's also this belief that when it comes to AAC, you have to focus, like really narrow down. It's kind of like the myth that if you do AAC, autistic people won't learn to talk. That's a total myth, by the way. Alternative and augmentative methods of communication are actually proven to help with language acquisition, actually improve the chances of autistic people speaking in a more typical way, if that's important to you. But more importantly, it's a method of communication now, a method of communication that works for them. And I think I had a thought at the beginning of that, and then I took a couple tangents, and now I don't know where I am, and I forgot. But so, that was a long talk on AAC. So no, you don't have to start with PECS. Do what works with your autistic child. Yeah. I'm going to type into the chat. Does anyone have any questions? I guess what I could do is go through my Tumblr ask box and answer some questions until I get questions from any of my campaign supporters here. Then at least it's interesting for the people who are watching right now, and then later too for the general public when they watch this. Oh, it's important to stay hydrated and get your blood sugar up. So I got my juice mixed with carbonated water here. It's good. Straws are really good for dyspraxia because then you don't have to try to do the cup to your face thing and get all the juice all over you. I hit my headphone. Alright. Where's my axe box? Kind of scary sounding. Ask box. I do not understand the Tumblr mobile app. It doesn't make any sense. Half the time, I don't think it's working properly. Okay. Oh, okay. So here's a good ask. It's actually the first one. I'm neurotypical, and I'm writing a speech about ableism for all kinds of schools. What are some must-have points I should include, in your opinion? Must-have points include... Okay. You gotta, establish the matrix, if that makes sense, because people have grown up in an ableist culture, and then especially, special education peeps. They were literally raised up in the most ableist of institutions based on the most erroneous of assumptions about disabled people. So first off, you gotta establish that disabled people are people, full stop. It doesn't matter if we seem very disabled to you or if we look almost normal at times. It doesn't matter what kind of impairments or comorbid conditions we have. People, full stop. It doesn't matter, if you can't feed yourself, if you can't speak with your mouth parts, if you can only speak with your mouth sometimes. It doesn't matter if you're intellectually disabled, if you're developmentally disabled. It doesn't matter if you will ever work a paying job, like a real job, and subscribe to the capitalist ideal. It doesn't matter if you won't get married. It doesn't matter if you don't communicate in a normal way. It doesn't matter if you wear a diaper or need help eating or bathing. None of those things affect a person's personhood. They are still people, full stop. Disabled people are people. So that's your first important point. Get that all out there. Second is to let them know that what they think is wrong. That because they've grown up under this ableist culture and these ableist institutions, what they believe is good is actually bad. It's up is down for them, and so then establish what the truth is. And the truth is, if disabled people are people, then they deserve to be treated in these ways. And these ways that they deserve to be treated are human rights, full civil rights, so the right to vote, to education, to employment opportunities, to accessible and equal housing, and then their autonomy, like, and self-direction, their ability to make choices for themselves, and their ability to also be in charge of their own health care, or to have a say in it, you know what I mean? So what they've been told is disabled people are either uncontrollable, like, animal-like, subhuman, mysterious enigmas that we can't really understand, and they just randomly exhibit behaviors for no reason. Just, like, we can't know. There's no way we couldn't possibly ask them why or whatever. So they're either that, they're like these subhuman mysteries, or they're these, like, angelic, perfect, unearthly gifts from God that are so sad and so tragic, but heartwarming too, because they, like, bring families together. So that's what they've been taught, is disabled people, and they've been taught then that because they're either subhuman animals or, like, perfect precious angels who aren't real people either, we need to make decisions for them, that we know what's best for them, and then also ideas about what it's like to be disabled. That's your third point. Establish that disabled people would rather be alive and disabled in the majority of cases than dead. Because a lot of able people believe that to be disabled is worse than dead. And you hear this in sentiment all the time. You can even use this as an example, because probably most everyone in your audience will have said something like this at least once. And it's like, I don't know what I would do if I couldn't see, or I think I would kill myself if I were paralyzed. Things like that. Like, that actually just literally express the direct, open sentiment that you would rather be dead than disabled. So address that as your third point, that disabled people can lead healthy, happy lives, that even when our lives are hard, and even when they're fraught with challenges, they are our lives to decide about. And you don't get to, as able people, you don't get to decide whose lives are worth living. Disabled people do. And so really, on all these points and supporting them, draw on the writings and actual quotations of disabled people. Because, I mean, on one hand, there's this thing able people do where they say, oh, well, that person couldn't possibly have actually been saying that. Like, someone else clearly typed it for them. Or, oh, well, you know, that disabled person is only okay with their disability because they don't know any better, because they're disabled, so they can't, like, know themselves. So if you can get past those assumptions and able people's propensity to believe able people over disabled people, the writings of disabled people are your best bet. It's like from the horse's mouth. It can be hard for people to take still, but it's a good way to say, I'm not just saying this, like, the disabled community, so many people in the disabled community believe this. So yeah, third point is establish that we get to say if our lives are worth living, and that they are, and that it's not better to be dead than disabled. And then if you can establish those three main points, like briefly or whatever, using quotes from disabled people, then you can get into specific examples of ableism in schools, because until you've covered those three things, like that disabled people are people, that we deserve the same rights and respect and dignity as everyone else, and that it's not better to be dead than disabled, as soon as you get rid of those excuses, things like restraints, chemical or physical, things like ABA, compliance therapy, abusive therapies like conversion therapy, like for gay kids, that's basically what compliance training or ABA is. Those things are no longer acceptable because it's not better to be dead than disabled, so there's no length that's too far to go, you know? If you take away that reasoning, then all of a sudden you're like, wait, if people are people and they're just like me, I wouldn't want to be subjected to shock treatment, or I wouldn't want to be put in an isolation room, or I wouldn't want to be held down and restrained, and so maybe we should stop and consider that we're doing this to people. Because a lot of ableism really arises out of the belief that autistic people, disabled people, not full people, and the full people get to make all the decisions for and about the not full people. So once you bring able people up to speed on the facts, then, you know, if they can accept that, then you can go forward. Yeah, because ableism isn't just like things that happen. It's not just incidents, and it's not even just beliefs. It's entire systems It's like an entire societal culture. It's in our media. It's everywhere. That's why it's so insidious and so hard to fight. And before we're even getting into ableism in schools and what we can do about it, you need to establish why it's bad and what even ableism is. Yeah. Juice break. And it's like bubbly, carbonated, so tickles the nose. And before the next question, I want to show you guys something really cool. It's not really autism related, except that my friend Leaf gave it to me. And it's this really cool rock. Oh, it's wet because my fingers had juice on them and now it's wet. So those spots are wetness. But these cool holes are what I wanted to show y'all. It's like the most magical of fairy stones because there's like a gazillion holes in it. Some places, I think like in the southern US, call these hagstones, but I've always heard them as fairy stones. But witch stones, I think, too. And then there's one more name I can't remember. I really like them. This is really good to stim with. You can put your finger through it, and it's a nice, lightly rough, smooth texture at the same time. It fits really well in the hands, has a nice weight to it. Yes. Thanks, Leaf. I really love this rock. Got it for my birthday. Turned 25 recently. Still here. Still alive. Even though I've been getting death threats all April. I guess that's like sticking it to the ableist man. Alright. Anyone have any questions? You can type them in the chat on the right hand side if you do. I mean, I hope that it's working and that I'm just not seeing, that I'm not just not seeing your guys' questions. Yeah, if it's not working and I'm ignoring you, I'm sorry. Alright. Sometimes people send me asks and I'm scrolling through like serious questions and then all of a sudden there's an ask like, excuse me, did you realize you are adorable or whatever? And then that's really sweet, and those sweet asks on Tumblr are probably what keeps me going during terrible hell months like April. Oh, okay. This person wants to know, there's an Autism Speaks walk coming up where they are in Toronto, and do they have any ideas or tips about protesting? They were thinking about maybe handing out pamphlets. Yes, pamphlets and info are great. Oh, hey Luke. Okay, good. I'm glad that the chat is working. So yeah, when it comes to protesting, info is like #1 thing to have with you, because a lot of people won't want to stop right there because, you know, they're at a thing, at a walk, they don't want to get left behind. But it's really easy to take a pamphlet and like put it in the bag of swag that you already have, because you know, these walks, these Autism Speaks walks accompany a kind of little fair thing with really loud music. Yeah, very autism friendly. So yeah, have info that people can take. I highly recommend the printables from the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network's Autism Acceptance Month. There are these fact sheets. The 3 main ones are what is autism, myths about autism, and frequently asked questions, I think. But they also have a really great Autism Speaks printable that they update every year with the current financial report from Autism Speaks, and it really breaks down about how only 2 to 3% is going to family services, and about what the research that Autism Speaks is doing is. So I highly recommend ASAN's printables about Autism Speaks and about, you know, why acceptance instead. Also, things that you can have there to attract people to actually come over and take pamphlets. Earplugs. This is a great idea, and actually our chapter leader, Alana, I think, came up with it. So what she did was she bought a bunch of individually wrapped earplugs. So they're in little plastic squares, you know, packaging. And then she got a bunch of stickers with the Vancouver ASAN chapter URL on them and put them on there, and the ASAN logo. And then we had a sign, free earplugs, and the box of earplugs. And yeah, it worked. People came over, took some earplugs because these walks are so loud. Like, even for non-autistic people who don't have sensory issues, I see them covering their ears and stuff at times and like not getting too close to the stage where these bands are playing. They really blast the music. It's terrible. And so, you're providing a service to all the autistic people and getting people to come over. If you have earplugs, you can also have bottles of water, which are always appreciated at walks. And again, you can either order bottles of water with custom printed labels or custom print stickers and stick them on there. And it doesn't have to be like a Vancouver, like we did the Vancouver ASAN chapter because that's who was protesting, but you can have any link on there. So to the Autism Acceptance Month website or to a blog post that you want someone to read. So yeah, have stuff to attract people too. And then I'd say the tip is to not, it's hard. Every protest is different. Some people's protests against Autism Speaks, they incorporate music to get people's attention, or they chant at people. That's a more aggressive approach, and it is, again, like louder. So it can, if you have sensory issues, maybe avoid. But then there's the approach of being really friendly and standing right on, like as close as you can get to the walk without interfering, and waving to people and smiling to kids and handing out pamphlets as they go by, and just say like, Happy Autism Acceptance Month, and hand them a pamphlet, and most people just unthinkingly take it. Like actually a lot of the people in the first year we protest, so in 2014, Vancouver ASAN protested the Autism Speaks walk in Vancouver, and a lot of people actually didn't even read our signs. I guess because a lot of stuff was happening too, so they thought we were in support of Autism Speaks, so they were all nice and like waving to us, and they're like, hey, and taking our stuff, and I'm like, because later they're gonna get home and read it, and it's like, why you shouldn't support Autism Speaks or boycott Autism Speaks. So that's a good idea. Or you can just be there, because people even just seeing signs that say things like Autistics Against Autism Speaks or I am not a puzzle piece, and ere just putting a short URL on a sign so people can see it like something memorable, because it plants a seed, and then later they're like, why were autistic people protesting an Autism Speaks walk? And then they might go online and say, what's wrong with Autism Speaks? And find a certain video or find some blog posts. And so even just being a presence, if you don't feel like putting yourself out there so much, just being there with signage and being willing to talk to someone who comes up to you, that can change the whole world, because you can change the mind of one person. And I think that's like changing the world, at least for the autistic person in their life. Yeah, so yeah. Oh, and also when it comes to protesting, some areas don't actually allow you to hand out pamphlets, like any paper material, as an anti-littering or environmental thing. So call and figure out. Also, you need to contact the city or the police department in your area, figure out if you need a permit to protest, and also where you are actually allowed to be. Because if Autism Speaks rents, say, like a certain park or space, you might not be able to set up actually inside the space. You might have to get like as close as you physically can without actually like crossing the parking lot or whatever. So you gotta know the rules to know how to bend them. You know what I mean? So in our case, like this past year, 2015, we weren't able to hand out any paper material, but because of the earplugs and water bottles, we still got our message out there. We still got information out there. And people did stop and talk a couple times, so yeah. Make sure that you're all like kosher and that you know the laws in your area, because also something that has happened to us is people might come over and try and intimidate you and tell you that you have to leave or tell you you're breaking the law. So it can be helpful to actually print out the like gov page, the government page on the laws in your area about protesting, or have your permit on you to show them, and know your rights. Because if they say, you can't be here, we're going to call the police, you can actually say, actually, we can be here. It's our legal right to protest. We have a permit or whatever. Or we've emailed the police, or we asked the city, we asked the park, or we asked the mall, or whoever owns, if it's a private thing, private institution, ask the people who own it. but we asked and we're allowed to be here, so F the pierogies. Which is the thing that, it's an inside joke. I'm sorry, that's an inside joke with me and Marvin. It's basically like the police, but we say the pierogies. Yeah. Alright, it's like 1:43. Cool. I think it's gone pretty well so far. Are people okay? Are you bored? Am I talking too fast? Am I making any weird noises that bother anyone? If I am, just let me know and I'll try to slow it down or stop doing the weird noises. Ow, my lower back. I was talking about, on the last one on Thursday, I was talking about low muscle tone in autistic people and how we often have weird ways of sitting. For me, it hurts so much to have good posture because I'm always slumped over or sitting all twisted up like a pretzel. Yeah. April is exhausting. And it's funny because people think it's like for us. They think that they're like helping autistic people. No. No, they're not. I used to like April. It's a good month. Maybe one day I'll like it again. Okay, here's a question I got in my Ask box on Tumblr from Anonymous. I have a 7-year-old son diagnosed with autism last year. He's in an autistic class. We have seen neurologists and we have done behavioral therapy. I really hope that's not what it sounds like. Side eye. I'm wondering what other medical professionals we should be seeing. I cannot find much info or resources in the state that I live. I've been lost since the diagnosis and don't know what to do or where to start. Any info would be appreciated. Thank you. Well, this is the right place to start. Ask autistic people. And I'm an autistic person, and you asked me, so good job. Because your son isn't sick, unless he has specific challenges that he needs like occupational therapy for, like sensory processing disorder, or if he needs speech therapy, then do that. But he's not sick. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. He has impairments and he's disabled, but his brain isn't broken. It's not sick. He doesn't need to be seeing doctors, if that makes sense. And you don't need to be thinking about treating him. You need to be thinking about loving him. And it looks different for disabled people sometimes. It does. Loving us can look like accommodating our disabilities. It can mean inclusion. It can mean forms of AAC, providing methods of communication. Yeah, so I'm thinking that you might not be finding many resources in the state you live in because autism isn't a sickness and you don't need like a medical professional or a specialist to treat it. Sounds like what you need are autistic people in your life, so I highly recommend seeking out the blogs and websites of actual autistic people. And it sounds like you need the support of other parents who care about their autistic kids and want them to grow up healthy and happy. And so in that case, I highly recommend the page Parenting Autistic Children with Love and Acceptance on Facebook. And from there, it's a pretty big community. From there, you can often post a public post and get replies from people who can recommend occupational therapists or speech therapists or, specific autistic resources in your area. But again, all these things that I talk about, they're therapies for the specific impairments that a developmentally disabled person might have and might want to address through therapy. These aren't mandatory things. Nothing bad is going to happen. Your child is going to be autistic no matter what you do. So you can worry about it and you can put them through a lot of stress, or you can accept it and start making a life that accommodates your child's needs, that's a healthy environment for them to grow and develop in. And you can start approaching your child not as they're sick, I need to find a doctor, I need to treat it, I need to cure it, but my child is different, they have a different brain, they have some disabilities, and so we're going to surround them with people and organizations that support them, that don't want to change them, that don't want to cure them. That's really the first step, is seeking out these organizations that are autistic-led and have autistic people's best interest in mind, seeking out the blogs and writings of autistic people, and seeking out community with other parents who have goals of not, like curing or changing their child or battling their child's autism, but of loving their children, of accommodating them and accepting them for who they are, and helping them grow, helping them through challenges, helping them learn to work with their impairments, helping them to learn ways of coping and accommodating themselves in a world that is not built for us. That's your goal. And those things, they start at home. Acceptance starts at home. Love fights cure culture, and that love starts at home. So, the professional that you need is actually the only real experts on autism, which are autistic people. So please do seek out the blogs and writings and works of autistic adults, because every autistic person is different, and so, your child might be nonverbal and I'm verbal, or your child might be verbal and, another autistic person is nonverbal. But so many of us have shared or similar experiences. So many of us have been, if not in the place where your child is, in similar places. And because we're here, because we are autistic adults, it means we survived. So if we're putting ourselves out there, we probably have stuff to share. So please do seek out autistic people, seek out our writings and our work, and community with other parents, and check out the For Parents tag on my blog. You can go on my blog, and in the search bar on the left-hand side, you just type For Parents, enter, and everything I've tagged with that tag will come up. And it's all really good stuff. Yeah, highly recommend. If anybody's just joining, this is the special live, extra long edition of Rapid Fire Answers Part 2. If you have a question for me, you can email it to me. I will be checking my email periodically throughout this live stream, or you can post it in the chat window on the right-hand side of the window that you're watching this in. Let's check my email. Alright, no new emails, so I guess I find another Tumblr ask. And have a drink of juice first. Okay, here's an interesting ask. I never really spoke in quotes or lyrics before. So like echolalia, I guess, is what Anon is getting at. But after realizing I'm autistic and often go nonverbal, I started doing it because I can speak comfortably for the first time this way. Am I just faking? Anon, I totally know what you mean when you say, am I just faking? But if the facts are straight up what you told me in this ask, no, you're not faking. You're an autistic person who, I guess in an ideal world, everyone's autistic, and so the people who raise us and who are around us understand us and can give us ways and strategies to cope, and we can learn about ourselves. But because we grow up in a non-autistic world with non-autistic people surrounding us who don't understand and who don't have the same experiences, until you encounter other autistic people and hear what they do and whatever, some things just may not occur to you, and that's totally normal. And I picked up some stims from Marvin, specifically putting my thumb in my hand and squeezing it. And, Marvin picks up some things and some echolalia from me. And a lot of autistic people, when we get together, when we're comfortable with each other, or if we spend enough time together, we might pick up each other's stims because they're a kind of mannerism and they're a kind of communication. And even non-autistic people do that. Even non-autistic people, when they spend enough time with someone, will start acting like them, or they'll find things that they say or do that they like and that feel good, so they do them too. And that's it with autistic people. So you're not faking, you are autistic. And if it is easier for you to talk, in quotes, but you just never realized it before, the echolele is better for you. Yeah, no, that's just, you didn't realize it before. It's always been true. You just didn't do it. You didn't know. So I'd say, no, you're not faking. But I totally get where you're coming from. And that, like, imposter syndrome is really common for either autistic people who are diagnosed late or who are undiagnosed or self-diagnosed. Yeah. No, I think it's really common for autistic people to pick up each other's stims or coping techniques. And if you hear something that works for someone else and then you try it and it works for you, do it. You know, do whatever you can do to make your life better and improve your situation and your sensory diet. It doesn't matter if you didn't come up with it first. It's still sincere if it works. Luke says, I used to stim by curling my toes. I did it so much I would wear out my shoes. I didn't know I could rock. Now my shoes last longer. Now my shoes last longer. That's good. Yes, that's like a very similar thing. Just didn't know that you could rock. Or if there was a time, like, I rocked as a kid, but I got it really, like, beaten out of me. Okay, whatever. Yeah, I got the pressure of people, like, the stigma. You look crazy, don't rock like that, or don't do that, or why. You pick up those messages, whether they're subtle or obvious, whether they're subliminal or just straight up, and it can happen at such a young age that you forget. So you can either not know that you could rock, you could have rocked as a kid, but have it trained out of yourself, have to relearn it, or have forgotten about it. Yeah. Man, that would be a lot of curling your toes if you were wearing out your shoes. My most common stim growing up, because again, like you, Luke, I kind of redirected it all into one subtle thing, was rolling my ankle, but only my right one. So now, because like my collagen production sucks anyway, and as my body starts to fall apart as I get older, that ankle is terrible. It goes out all the time. It's so flexy and bendy, it's just not good. It's not a good scene. And so in that way, it's actually kind of an injurious stim now. So I'm trying to do it like with my left ankle if I really need to, or to do it less, and to substitute other stims. And it sucks because I genuinely like that stim, but because it's one of the only places that I could put it, like all my sensory needs, my stimming energy, that joint is so worn out because it's how I would get to sleep. I wouldn't be able to get to sleep at night unless I could like roll my ankle a gazillion times. I did it at school all the time. I just constantly. So yeah. In that way, it's also good to try out new forms of stimming. Like check out the blog F Yeah Stimming, and you can see submitted stims from other people, because if you have a wide variety of stims in your toolkit, like if you have a lot of stims you can use to get the sensory input you need, then you won't be like wearing out one part of your body. Of course, you know, like I'd always prioritize stimming when you need to, but it's important to protect your body and make sure that your stims aren't hurting yourself long term too. Yeah. Actually, something I'd like to speak on real briefly, and I'll keep it like light because I don't want to get too deep, and I don't know like how old everybody is who's watching. But when it comes to self-harming, it's super common with autistic people who either feel like they have to pass, or who have been through ABA, or just through, you know, our ableist society feel like they've been forced to pass as non-autistic. Autistic people who are undiagnosed, or who are diagnosed late, or who live in places where they're not safe to be themselves, they're much more likely to engage in covert forms of self-harming. That was me when I was a teenager, because I didn't know what was going on with me, because I had so much, just so much inside me and nowhere to put it. I would self-harm, and that was vastly more dangerous for me, the kind of self-harming I did, than just stimming. And now I have like long-lasting scars from that, and it's all because the healthy, innocent things that I could have done had been beaten out of me by society, and they were so stigmatized. Simple things, like things that don't hurt anybody but just look a little weird or a little different, like flapping your hands or rocking, like those were taken away. And so there is no judgment in my heart for autistic people who self-harm, because I've been there and I know how hard it is when you're like undercover, when you're in the autistic closet, or when you're in an environment or with people who don't accept you. It's really tough. It's not ideal, and I do hope for healthy coping methods for every autistic person, and for an environment that they can be themselves in and be free and just stim when they need to. But I also can't be too harsh to judge, and I can totally understand. And so if that's you, I want to encourage you that you're surviving, so that means that you are doing great. Like, in the grand scheme of things, you're still here, and that if you want to change things, there are other ways, and you can slowly and in private even try out stimming. You can try and see what works for you. You can relearn things from your childhood, and it can be really hard at first. A lot of people actually have a lot of deep, like, shame, embarrassment, or fear even when they're alone. I hear that a lot from people, that they're trying to relearn how to stim, trying to be proud of themselves, or trying to be okay with it, and still they like even can't do it in front of their spouse. Like, they can only do it alone, or they even feel bad doing it alone. But incorporating daily stimming, like incorporating stimming into your everyday life, is the best way at harm reduction, because you're not building up so much that eventually you need to let loose by self-harming. Over the course of the day, you can provide for your sensory needs, and you can soothe yourself, and you can self-regulate. And then that blow up, like meltdown form, or the self-harming, or the shutdowns, they don't happen as often. I think I have like juice under my nose. It's sticky. It's really awkward, I'm sorry. Even though I have a straw, I still get whatever I'm drinking all over me. So, if anybody has any questions, you can post them. But until then, I'll check out my Ask box some more. Oh, that's not good. Okay, my alarm's going off, so I have to go get that. I'll be right back. Hey, Gigi. Okay, so if I would have known that I would have had to get up, I would have worn actual pants today. Moving on. So, on to my Ask box. I can't say Ask box. It's very difficult for me, apparently. Alright. you have a favorite X-Man? Yes, I do. It's Jean Grey. I really like Phoenix too. But Jean Grey, ultimate fave. But I also really enjoy Shadowcat and Magic and Karma and who's the one that turned into a Valkyrie, even though she's totally native? I just can't remember her name right now. Yeah, okay, her. So okay, here's an ask from Anonymous. So I've had shutdowns of increasing frequency, but they all seem to be triggered by different things. So I'm at a loss. What are some of the most common causes, of meltdowns? Shutdowns. Yes. What are the common causes of shutdowns? Well, every autistic person is different. I say that probably a million times a day. Kitty's eating, by the way. No, Gigi's eating Kitty's food, if you're wondering what that crunching noise is. So every autistic person is different, but also every situation is different. So sometimes it's not the environmental trigger, but it's the way you feel. Stress is a huge trigger of shutdowns. Any kind of emotional stress, for me, surprises. Any kind of surprise or change in the day, and I know that's very common. So if you were expecting one thing and another thing happens, that can be super painful for both your executive functioning, which struggles to catch up, for your cognitive processing, and then just for our autistic neurotype, which really prefers knowing what's going to happen. So stress, unexpected changes or surprises in your routine or in your day. Yeah, any kind of emotional upset. And this can be hard, this emotional one, if you also have alexithymia. Like Marvin has alexithymia, and so that's when you have trouble either knowing what you're feeling or identifying and naming the emotions inside you. So it can be hard to even know if you're feeling anything sometimes. I don't think it's that way for him. It's mostly, it's you're feeling bad, but why? What kind of bad? Or you feel anxiety, but you can't pinpoint about what or why or even how you feel anxious. Alexithymia can be a real frustrating little peanut to crack. So if you are triggered by emotions to shut down, and you have alexithymia, you can't always know when the shutdown's coming until it's happened. And with alexithymia, really all you can do is learn other ways of knowing what you're feeling, if that makes sense. So some people, they learn that for them, any kind of anxiety like fear is accompanied by nausea, or when they're angry or they're frustrated, their eyes tear up, or when they're scared or they feel like they're in danger, it feels like your stomach goes out from under you, or you get a surge of adrenaline. So with alexithymia, there isn't really any way to feel harder. You can, I feel like anecdotally I've heard with time, you can get better at extrapolating what you're probably feeling, and you can kind of keep a journal or a log, or even just keep your eyes open for times and look for patterns. So it's I get moody and quiet after this thing happens. So you might not know exactly what you're feeling, but you can anticipate that and try to work around it, or to lessen the stress of it the next time it happens. So that's if you have alexithymia. So emotions can also trigger shutdowns, and that can be tricky if you have trouble knowing what your emotions are. And then finally, I'd say the last most common cause of shutdowns would be just sensory overload, or being being so desperate for sensory integration. Oh, also dissociation and shutdowns can be pretty deeply intertwined and can happen at the same time, or at different times in the same people. They don't, always accompany each other, but if you are prone to dissociation, then when you dissociate, you may shut down, or vice versa. Luke asks, is part of your new alexithymia video going to cover the pressure of hearing, well, can you try to identify your feelings? Yeah, that's frustrating. That's like when people ask me, well, have you tried doing, motor control thing that dyspraxia prevents? It's like, no. No, before I said that I couldn't do it, I never tried it. Not once. I just assumed that I can't, like, who would try to identify your feelings? Like, who does that? No, like, yeah, I'll address how frustrating that is. It's not something that you can try harder to do. You can only kind of like learn workarounds or learn ways of identifying what's going on in you other than emotions, or learning patterns and recognizing your triggers. So yes, I'll try to cover that. Try to get it through to people's heads that it's not something you can try harder about. That reminds me of in X-Men 2 at Bobby Drake's house. Have you tried not being a mutant? No, Mom. It's like the entire concept is ridiculous. Have you tried not being a mutant? Have you tried identifying your feelings when you have a neurological condition that prevents you from identifying your feelings? Yeah, and then also, why wouldn't you have tried, at least? I'm pretty sure everyone has tried. Alright. Oh, it's 2:09, so that's about 20 more minutes left. If anybody has any questions, feel free to email them to me or post them in the chat window. I'll check my email now. My email is amethystshaber@gmail.com, and yeah, I think y'all know how to spell amethyst because it's, and Shaber actually, it's right there on my YouTube username by my little profile picture under the video. Okay, no emails, so back to Tumblr Ask Box. Let's just actually, just for funsies, let us take a gander at how many asks are in my Ask Box, and let us truly appreciate the highest level of executive dysfunction that I have reached. So there, I don't know if you all can see, but it says inbox 746. And I answer a lot. Like, I get through quite a few a day, usually answering them privately. There's no possible physical way for me to keep up with all the messages and emails I get, so I'm very sorry to anybody who's ever contacted me and I didn't get back to you. It might be worth trying again, or, if you have been the victim of my super slow, super long wait for replies, then sorry about that too. Executive functioning, how do you even? Okay, here's an ask. It's about adult diagnosis. I'm trying to officially be diagnosed, but I need help. I've called several psychiatrists, but none have returned my calls. My GHP won't give me a referral. I assume GHP is GP, like your family doctor, your general practitioner. I feel so frustrated and lost. I don't know what I'm doing or saying wrong. Well, your GHP isn't giving you a referral because most GPs are so vastly uneducated on autism and actually miseducated on autism. Also, GPs have this weird thing where they get offended when you come to them and ask for referrals. I have no idea why. I think it's that doctor arrogance. Oh, Didi's in the back. Funny. Oh, I just love him so much. He's so black. He's like a panther. Oh, Okay, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so GPs don't really like it when you ask for referrals. It looks like what might be your best option, because there aren't actually a whole lot of services for autistic adults, or even if there is a psychiatrist who's willing to diagnose autistic children, they don't see autistic adults. So what I would do is Google or search or ask around for private clinics or private centers that diagnose autistic adults in your area. For me, I'm in the Lower Mainland, and there's a clinic in Surrey called the Able Clinic, and it might be your best bet for getting a diagnosis if the public healthcare system is failing you, as it fails most autistic adults, because there's just no provision for us, and even the autism experts don't really want to see us. So it might be pricey, like my diagnosis was. We had to pay out of pocket, although they have an adjusted payment plan depending on your income, so that was really nice. But it was like, I think it was about $2,000, maybe. And of course prices vary, and that was for the standard 3 sessions that are like an hour and a half to 2 hours long each, with a variety of tests in there, like a developmental test and a psychiatric test and things like that. So this is yet another reason that professional diagnosis is just beyond inaccessible and impossible for some people. Like, especially for disabled people, for autistic people, we have an unemployment rate of like upwards of 80%. How are we supposed to afford to pay out of pocket for, a psychiatrist or a team of doctors at a private clinic just for a diagnosis? For the paper that says that we are. That's tough. So it might actually be helpful for you to consider if this is the right time for a diagnosis for you, if it's something that you need at this time in your life, and if it's worth it. And if it is, then you might want to consider seeking out a private clinic, and maybe some people fundraise to get their adult diagnoses, like on YouCaring or GoFundMe. That can be an option too if you're strapped financially, but you need a diagnosis for whatever reason. But it's also an option to wait, or to do what a lot of autistic people do and remain self-diagnosed, as if you aren't the person who knows your brain the best in the entire world. Yeah. So I'm really sorry you're having trouble with it, but it's very common, and I don't have a lot of info to go off of here. Like, I have no idea even what country you're in, but it's experts who are willing to see adults and diagnose them are so rare. I don't have a hard time believing that you're having trouble finding one. Juice break. Does anyone here like ASMR? I watch ASMR YouTube videos sometimes. I find them really relaxing. I think the first ASMR I ever experienced in real life is when I was a kid, and I would quietly suck on my straw, so it makes that slurping noise. It would put tingles all up the back of my head and in my ears and down my neck, and yeah, and then getting haircuts too, like the snipping of the scissors, the sound and the feeling. It's good stuff. I guess I've always been a sensory seeker. I'm sensory defensive in a lot of areas, but I'm pretty much sensory seeker at heart. Oh, Gigi used the toilet. I have to go flush it for him. Sorry. Sorry. So, yeah, speaking of, sensory defensiveness, I grew up with cats. We always had cats. At one point, we had, 12 cats or something when we lived in the country and had a little barn garage thing. I don't do litter boxes anymore. I love cats. I love my cats, but I won't do litter box. So I trained my cats to use the toilet. I mean, Marvin helped. He was involved. He cooperated. But it was pretty much my idea, and I was pretty much in charge. So I guess I'm pretty much the cat whisperer. No, it's really easy. There's a system you can get, like the stuff you put on the toilet to teach them. But yeah, so now they use the toilet. It's great. There's no mess. There's no smell, because I'm super, super sensitive to smell. Like cat, I can't handle, especially our small place. Wouldn't be able to handle a litter box in here. Especially, and the feeling of the kitty gravel. No. Mm-mm. So, toilet, good. And I'm very proud of my babies. They're really good at it. I don't actually think of them as my babies, by the way. I just call them babies because it's like a cute, like, term of affection. So, if anybody has any questions, we're getting down to the last 10 minutes, so you can post them to the right in the chat video box thing, or email them to me. The noise after DG went to the toilet, that scratching noise is because he like scratches around and the shower door is there, and so sometimes it makes that noise. He scratches around after to like flush it, I guess. I don't know, even though I flush it for him. Okay, so I'll find a good ask to answer. Oh, okay. Here's a question I get a lot. I'm wondering why you write some disabilities with a lowercase and then an uppercase letter. Blind, deaf, and autistic are the examples. Is it something to do with deaf people versus deaf culture? The ASL course I'm taking talks about that a bit. I've never seen it written like that before. Firstly, I find it very curious that you're in an ASL course that only mentions like the significance of the deaf community and like the capital D a little bit. But maybe it's in the beginning of the course or you're new to it, I don't know. And also weird that you've never seen it written like that before if you're in an ASL course. But I guess a lot of ASL courses are actually taught by non-deaf people, or sometimes even people who aren't even really a part of the deaf community. So yes, it is about that. It's about culture. Some autistic people don't identify as like what I call capital A autistic. They like, I don't know how to do a capital A autistic. They like prefer, just they don't, like they're not a part of the community or whatever. They don't capitalize A, but people like me, you know, we're kind of, it's part of our culture and our identity. We're really proud of it. Like capital B black, like capital D deaf or blind or deaf blind. A lot of autistic people feel the same way, and I often capitalize autistic culture, like when I'm referencing a wider, like our history and our culture, our collective culture. So yes, that's where I use it. And if I put both, like a lowercase and an uppercase, I'm just trying to be inclusive of people who might be sensitive to the capital A cultural side. So yeah. Oh, BG actually used the toilet again. I think he did number 2, so I'm gonna go flush again, sorry. I'll be back, and I'll go like 5 minutes late to make up for it, I promise. Gigi, why did you do this to me? Gigi. He knows I'm not pleased with his choice of timing here. I guess that's what you get when you do a live thing, though. Sometimes life happens and your cats use the toilet. Alright. Someone asked a little while ago on Tumblr if I have any photos of myself doing T-Rex arms. I'm an autistic artist who draws for WikiHow, and if you're okay with it, I would love to see photos so I can draw autistic characters doing it too. That's really cool, and I don't have any photos, I just realized. So it's like this. It's like but I gotta like relax and do it. Yeah, so yeah, this is what I refer to as T-Rex arms. Some people do it more out. For me, it's like usually my hands are in. The key features are like arms by the sides, hands up or at the waist, kind of hanging. It's also really good because you got that nice like closeness to your body for the pressure, but your hands are like free to flap or do things if you need to. So I like it, and it's really comfy for me. It makes me feel like an adorable dinosaur, and that's what I and a lot of other autistic people refer to as T-Rex arms. Yeah. Oh, here's a good question. I was wondering if you knew of clothing brands directed towards autistic people. I've been scratching myself as a way of stimming, and I'm curious if you know of any gloves that aren't sensory overload. I'm not sure about gloves. Maybe. But I do know of a couple autistic-specific clothing lines, or at least like SPD-specific clothing lines. One is, I think, a site that make mostly undergarments, like undies and tank tops and t-shirts, but they're completely seamless. I know of another brand that all the seams are on the outside, although that brand, I think it might be okay. And then there's one more I saw recently, a new site that was opening up, and there was actually some controversy about it because the clothes have a little pocket for like a GPS tracker in them, which, I know the arguments for GPS trackers on autistic people, but I also know it's just gross. It just feels gross. It just does. And a lot of autistic people have a problem with it. So, if you're not like totally opposed to supporting a site that provides like a little pocket for GPS trackers in their clothes, I will post all 3 of the ones that I've seen and remember off the top of my head. I'll Google for them and post them in the video description when I post this video publicly, which will be shortly after the live stream ends. Yeah, I think I have it set up to automatically become a publicly posted video. Now Gigi's here and he's hitting his tail against me like I don't know, like he's sorry maybe? It's cute. Oh, found an ask about some parent who wants to know about gender confusion in their daughter. I guess who might not be their daughter. That one is too big for this video, so I'll answer that on my blog. Okay, here's one from an autistic person. They want to know what happened to them, and they describe an incident where they were rocking, they were repeating "I'm sorry" over and over again, and they nearly got sick, which I assume is like they were feeling nauseous. And they want to know, is this a meltdown or a shutdown? And they say that their Nana calmed them down, and that they're all good now, but they want to know for next time. So sometimes, like, what happens in our brain doesn't have a really clear delineation. Like, sometimes you can kind of have a shutdown and a meltdown at the same time. For me, those often look like really loud sobbing, but my terrible cat just pulled my headphone out of the back of my computer. Firstly, he's way too smart for his own good. Secondly, Gigi, I'm gonna skin you and make a coat. Stop. I gotta put these back in. Don't do that. Sorry, everyone. This is the least professional live stream in the world. But this is what is happening when I'm trying to work during the day, when I'm trying to write or make videos. So now you get like a peek into the reality behind Ask an Autistic. A lot of naughty cats. So what was I saying? Oh yeah. So sometimes you can have a meltdown and a shutdown at the same time. For me, that looks kind of similar to what you described, in that I can't do much physically. I'm often just rocking, or I just drop to the ground and curl into a ball, or just lie flat. But I'm crying, or I'm sobbing, or I might be repeating, like, I'm sorry or something over and over. For me, I kind of classify that as like a gentler kind of meltdown. For me, my meltdowns can be quite violent. Some people's meltdowns just look like sobbing, though. So everyone's different, and there aren't super clear categories. like if you check these boxes, you had an autistic meltdown. It's like, again, how every person's different. So I would say that it sounded to me like you were having a meltdown, but also a bit like a shutdown. And I'm really glad that your nana was able to calm you down. Yeah, that's good. Not much can help me when I'm meltdowning, but when I'm shutdowning, deep pressure from the only person on the planet I trust, who's Marvin, so him rubbing my back hard or like squeezing the back of my neck, that can help kind of bring me back to my body and help the dissociation and help the shutdown end faster. And now my fridge is making super loud noises for some reason. Sounds like there's an animal trapped in there or something. There isn't. Just, it's a very noisy fridge. Okay, here's a question. Hi Amethyst, have you heard of a book called Neurotribes by Steve Silverman? Yes, I have. I have not read it. I hear it's quite long. I would like to read it. I like long books anyway. You know, like good books that you really have to take a while on. But I haven't been able to afford it. So I'll probably ask for it for Christmas or maybe save up. I give myself like an allowance from from the shirts that I sell online or from my pendants. Yeah, so save up my allowance and get it. Just, is it available in paperback yet? Will it ever be available in paperback? Because hard copy is a little pricey and hard to hold. I got little hands and they're kind of weak these days. Gigi, he's back there and he's thinking about pulling the headphones out again. I know he is. Okay, would you consider beatboxing and talking to yourself in different accents or verbal or vocal stimming? Particularly talking in different accents. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for me, like I can just be repeating a word over and over in my regular Canadian accent and it can be stimming, like by echolalia. I'd say that beatboxing is definitely a form of vocal stimming and like the vibrations in your mouth and your lips and stuff. Yeah, and talking in accents too. I'd say so. It's funny how echolalia can be both a processing thing to buy yourself time, it can be a method of communication and expression, or it can just be like almost kind of stimming. Yeah, stimming over and over. It's fun and it's repetitive and it feels good. So. Anybody have a question? I might be able to answer like 2 more. If you do, you can post in the chat window. I know I've said that a gazillion times, but... Oh, Luke says there is a paperback in the US. It's only about $12. Well, that's like $14.50 Canadian or something, which is ridiculous. The dollar makes me so sad right now, but thank you. I guess I'll add it to my wish list and I'll save up my allowance for it. I like paperbacks better anyway. If you're it's like, are you a hardcover book collector or are you a softcover book collector? I think I'm soft. Oh, I'm W sitting. I'm not supposed to do that. It's bad for my hips. Gotta do mermaid sitting, like when both your legs are to one side. Hmm. Having a lot of trouble finding an actual question. It seems like I got a lot of really nice asks just complimenting me or like stating things recently. Oh, this person says that if you Google hand flapping, I'm the fourth image. That's pretty cool. I'm like, I'm on Google. Do you have any advice for future special education teachers? Acknowledge that everything you've been taught is wrong. Okay, no, not everything, but most. Most of what you've been taught is wrong. And even if it was right, you weren't taught from the source. To know that disabled people have very different ideas about what our education should look like than able people who are planning it. See, find disabled people. Read their writings. Prioritize the voices of disabled people. Seek out disabled adults. And listen to disabled kids. If you do that, you're unable to ignore our message, and you're going to have to eventually come to terms with it or choose to be a jerk face and ignore it. So yes, seek out disabled adults, read our writings. That is my top advice for anybody who's going to be working in any capacity with any kind of disabled people. Don't let able people tell you about us. Don't talk about us without us, and don't let able people tell you what we think. Let us tell you what we think. This person says, I hope you feel better soon and have a day filled with kittens and rainbows. I hope I have a day filled with kittens and rainbows too. Trying to find a question that I can answer in just a couple minutes because we got to be winding down soon. So that's a heads up for people who need transitions. Probably another couple minutes and then I'll be saying goodbye. Oh, okay. Here's a short question. I was curious why people tend to write Autism Speaks with a $sign as an S. Is it a reference to the way they use their funds? Yes. Is there also a reference to how they're super greedy and use fear-mongering to scare up cash? And then, can video games be stimming? Yes, 110%. Especially if you're doing repetitive things, like doing the same level over and over, or if you have one game that you're always coming back to. But in general, yeah, video games are definitely, they're visual stimming, they're audio stimming. If you have the volume, you get the like fidgetiness of game controllers. And I've seen studies that actually suggest that video games are good for autistic people and they help us with our motor control and even problem solving and making decisions. So I play video games. I'm not like a big intense gamer or anything, but I do, and I think that's cool. And I think if you like them, play them. They're definitely stimmy. Yeah, I mean anything practically can be a stim. Alright, so I think that we are winding down on part 2 of the extra long special rapid fire answers. I had a good time today. I hope that you all did too and that it was informative for you. And I want to say again a huge thank you to all my campaign subscribers. You rocked my world. It was such a burden on my mind too. It was such a big worry. It was really draining my spoons. And now everything is good. Just everything is good. So thank you. And I'm really looking forward to getting back in the game and making some quality content for you all that you can, of course, feel free to share, because I get that question sometimes too. Can I post your videos on my personal blog or on my personal website or on my Facebook? And yes, please do, as long as you're embedding my YouTube videos and not like downloading them and then uploading them somewhere else. Please feel free. Like, share them everywhere, send them to people. The idea of my videos going out across the internet and educating people and helping autistic people know themselves better and being even just a little helpful, that is what keeps me going, and that makes my life. And I think that, yeah, together we are making a better world, and things are changing for autistic and otherwise disabled people. And I want to be a part of that change. And now, thanks to all of you, your generous support, like financial, emotional, shares and views, and otherwise, thanks to all you, I can be. So thank you again. So bye to the people watching, and thank you to everyone who sent in questions. And I will be seeing you all for a new Ask an Autistic episode very shortly, like as soon as possible. I want to get that up because it's been a while and I'm raring to go, as my mom would say. So this has been Ask an Autistic, extra special rapid fire answers. Bye friends. Happy Autism Acceptance Month.